Let me tell you the terrifying truth. No one warns you about quiet, long-term betrayal. The worst heartbreak doesn't crash into your life out of nowhere. It creeps in slowly, hidden behind sweet goodbyes, casual text messages, and family warmth. You think you can always trust. I'm Sophia, and today, I'm sharing my raw, true story. How I spent 18 years building a faithful, steady marriage, only to discover my husband and my in-laws had spent just as long building an elaborate lie to take everything from me. As a 44-year-old U.S. Army captain with 22 years of training to stay calm under every kind of battlefield pressure, I mastered crisis control for wars, missions, and soldier emergencies. But nothing prepared me for the day my own home became the battlefield, and I was the last one to find out I'd been fighting alone. It was a regular Tuesday in Texas, and I'd just merged onto Highway 71, fresh from base duties, ready to head home after a long week. Then my phone rang, and it was Maria, my housekeeper of 10 years, the quiet, honest woman who'd watched my home and my marriage longer than anyone. She wasn't talking, she was gasping, crying so hard I could hear her lungs straining for breath through the line. In a trembling whisper that still haunts me, she said, "Don't come home, pull over right now, check your house cameras." I've learned to trust my body's instincts long before my brain catches up. Military training rewires you that way. Danger doesn't always sound loud. It hums in your bones. My hands instantly tightened around the steering wheel, every muscle tensing with a dread I hadn't felt in combat. I didn't argue, didn't ask twice. I took the very next exit, pulled into the empty parking lot of a shuttered local barbecue shop, and parked under a faded old sign advertising brisket by the pound. It was such a normal, mundane scene, completely at odds with the nightmare unfolding inside my house 20 minutes away. Just minutes before that panicked call, I'd stood inside Austin Bergstrom Airport, hugging my in-laws goodbye. They'd smiled brightly, rolling their matching blue suitcases, telling me they were off to Seattle before boarding an Alaskan cruise. My mother-in-law Judith held me in an unusually long, tender hug, telling me to take care of myself. I'd soaked it up as pure family kindness. I thought I was lucky to have caring, involved in-laws while I served active duty, often away for training and military obligations. I had no idea every smile, every hug, every sweet word was rehearsed. I opened my home security app with shaking hands. The front porch camera was empty. The kitchen was quiet and still. For a split second, I exhaled, foolishly hoping Maria had overreacted. Then I tapped into the living room live feed, and my entire world stopped turning. There stood my husband Daniel, after 18 years of marriage, holding another woman by the waist. He kissed her slowly, softly, comfortably, the kind of kiss that doesn't belong to a one-time mistake. It was familiar, routine, intimate. The woman was wearing my cream cardigan, the one I kept folded in the hallway closet for our perpetually chilly Texas house, the one I only wore on lazy, quiet nights at home. On our coffee table sat an open bottle of my best Cabernet Sauvignon, a special gift from my battalion commander after a perfect base inspection, a small honor I'd cherished deeply. Daniel had opened it for her, not for me. I watched, frozen, as she laughed and touched his face. Daniel smiled at her in a warm, unguarded way I hadn't seen in years, not the tired, polite smile he gave me after long work days. This was the smile of someone who was fully present, fully happy, fully in love with someone who wasn't his wife. My phone slipped in my sweaty palm, and I fumbled to catch it before it crashed to the floor. I called Maria back immediately, my voice shockingly steady, another side effect of decades of forcing composure through chaos. She told me she'd returned home to grab her blood pressure medication, walked inside, and heard unfamiliar voices. She'd hidden in the laundry room, terrified. I'd drive straight into the middle of whatever was happening. I ordered her to leave through the garage, take only her purse, and get to safety. I told her none of this was her fault. Even as my chest was splitting open with pain, military training kicked in automatically: preserve evidence, secure the facts. Never react out of panic. I saved every second of the live footage to my phone, backed it up to my personal email, and prepared to process what I'd seen. But right as I reached for my truck's ignition to leave, new movement popped up on the living room camera. My breath died in my throat. That identical blue suitcase I'd watched my in-laws wheel through airport security rolled into frame. Then Judith walked into my living room laughing like she hadn't just faked an entire cross-country vacation an hour prior for a wild, desperate moment. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was an old video clip. Maybe she'd forgotten something and turned back. Maybe I was exhausted from endless base training and imagining things. Then I saw the live timestamp in the corner of the screen. 11:47 a.m. Live footage. No loopholes. No mistakes. No excuses. I watched Judith set the fake suitcase down beside the couch, and Daniel wrapped his arm around her shoulders, like they were celebrating a successful mission. That was easier than I expected, she grinned. The other woman laughed and admitted she'd thought I'd insist on walking them all the way through airport security. Daniel's reply cut deeper than the affair itself. She never questions family. That's when I understood the full truth. This was not a secret my husband was hiding from his parents. This was a family operation. His own mother and father were active, willing participants in deceiving me. They'd staged a fake airport send, used empty suitcases as props, and returned to my home to celebrate his affair right under my roof. For the first time, my grief wasn't just about a cheating husband. It was about 18 years of being loved falsely by an entire family. I forced myself to keep watching, calm and focused. Panic makes people careless. Patience lets you see the whole battlefield. I've learned that in deployments, in crisis responses, in every high-stakes situation the Army ever put me in. And that day, I applied it to my broken marriage. Judith asked if Maria had left the house. Daniel confirmed she'd cleaned that morning and was gone. The other woman hesitated, worried she'd been seen, but Daniel waved it off. She's 61, she barely notices anything. That line gutted me. Maria had noticed everything. For 10 years, she'd cleaned my house, observed my marriage, and quietly watched the cracks form long before I ever saw them. She'd seen this woman in my home multiple times, and she'd stayed silent, only because she had no concrete proof until that day. I called Maria back instantly. She answered on the first ring, whispering that she was already driving away, overwhelmed with guilt for not speaking up sooner. Then she told me something that shattered every last piece of my denial. She'd seen this woman in my house at least 6 times before. 6 separate visits, not a mistake, not a random encounter. A routine, a pattern of lies I'd completely missed. Worse still, she said. Judith had hugged the woman that morning like family. There were no awkward introductions, no formal greetings. They already knew each other perfectly. My mother-in-law hadn't accidentally stumbled on the affair. She'd nurtured it, enabled it, and helped it thrive for months right in my own home. I replayed the entire security footage from the beginning, no longer watching Daniel's betrayal, but studying every tiny calculated detail of their setup. 3 coffee cups on the dining table, a fresh box of local donuts on the counter. This wasn't a spontaneous meetup. It was a planned morning gathering. I pulled up the driveway camera feed and uncovered the final layer of their lie. At 11:39 a.m., a black SUV pulled into my driveway. Judith and Harold stepped out with only 2 tiny carry-on bags. No cruise luggage, no travel gear, no signs of a 2-week out-of-state trip. The large blue suitcase they'd flaunted at the airport was empty. A prop built solely to fool me. They had never intended to leave Texas at all. As I zoomed into the grainy footage, I watched Harold shake Daniel's hand and hug the other woman warmly, like she was already part of their family. A forgotten memory flooded my mind instantly. 3 months prior, Judith had canceled our weekly family Sunday dinner, claiming she and Harold were spending the weekend in Waco. That same morning, Daniel had skipped church with me, lying about a last-minute client meeting. I now realized they'd all spent that weekend together, celebrating their secret while I lived in complete ignorance. Then my phone pinged with a text from Daniel. Hope your drive back is safe, love you. He was sitting in my living room wrapped up in his secret life with his family and his mistress, and he could still send me a loving, casual text without an ounce of guilt. I typed back a calm reply, playing the oblivious wife, while I watched him smile at the other woman on my camera feed. Seconds later, I watched Judith walk across my living room holding a thick manila envelope. Scrawled across the front in bold black marker was one word: attorney. In that moment, I finally understood. This was never just an affair. This was a premeditated, legally backed scheme. They weren't just hiding a relationship. They were planning to end our marriage, steal our assets, and leave me with nothing. They'd been preparing for months, maybe years, while I continued to love and trust them blindly. I sat in that truck for 10 more minutes. The brutal July Texas sun beating down on my windshield, watching ordinary people live ordinary lives around me. Families laughed. Travelers packed up their cars. Strangers stopped for barbecue. The world kept moving, like nothing had happened. While my 18-year marriage, my trust, and my entire sense of security had completely collapsed. I took one steady breath and called my battalion executive officer. I told him I had a sudden family emergency and requested to handle my upcoming briefing remotely. A favor I'd never asked for in 22 years of dedicated service. He granted me grace without hesitation, telling me to prioritize my family. After hanging up, I immediately contacted Linda Brooks, a seasoned divorce attorney, a fellow soldier had recommended years prior. Linda's office overlooked Austin's Lady Bird Lake, and at first glance she was calm, polished, and impossibly steady. The kind of lawyer who's seen every form of marital deception imaginable. I showed her every video, every timestamp, every detail of their staged vacation and secret gathering. She didn't react to the cheating. She leaned forward at the sight of that attorney envelope, and said the words that changed everything. They're not just cheating, they're organized. They've been building an exit strategy for a long time. She forced me to shift from a grieving wife to an investigator. Together, we built a timeline of every red flag I'd ignored over 6 months. Daniel had pushed to switch all our finances to paperless billing to hide statements from me. Judith had volunteered to store all our home documents in her fireproof safe under the guise of household safety. Every kind gesture was a calculated move to take control of our life and our assets. Linda gave me one non-negotiable rule: do not confront anyone. Let them believe I'm still completely in the dark. They expect anger, tears, and chaos, she said. They won't expect you to be patient, methodical, and collecting every piece of evidence to win. On my drive home, Daniel called me again, cheerful and casual, lying that his parents had already safely landed in Seattle after an early flight. The lie flowed so naturally, so effortlessly, I almost admired how well he'd perfected it. But I had the timestamp proof to destroy every word of it. That night, I uncovered the final, devastating piece of their scheme. After logging into our joint investment account for the first time in months, I discovered $186,247.18 was missing. Daniel hadn't stolen it all at once. He'd siphoned small, incremental sums over 8 months, labeling every fraudulent transfer as a portfolio adjustment or asset reallocation to avoid suspicion. If I hadn't uncovered his betrayal, I would have never noticed a single missing dollar. The next day, Linda's investigation uncovered even worse news. Daniel had secretly purchased a lake cabin outside Burnett, then transferred full ownership to Judith for just $1 6 weeks prior, a legal tactic in Texas designed solely to fraudulently hide marital assets during divorce. Over $140,000 of our stolen money had funded full luxury renovations on that cabin. New docks, remodeled kitchens, custom furniture. I'd unknowingly paid for a property my husband had stolen from our family to hide from me. But the deepest betrayal wasn't financial. It was personal. Daniel had filed sworn legal statements months prior, lying under oath that my military service had made me abandon our marriage, that I prioritized my career over my family, and that our relationship had been broken for years. He'd spent years rewriting my character, destroying my reputation, and painting himself as the victim to lenders, our church, and our community. The turning point came when Linda connected me with Emily Carter, the woman Daniel had been cheating with. At 38, a pharmaceutical rep from Waco, she was not the villain I'd imagined, she was another victim. Daniel had lied to her for 11 months, claiming our divorce was finalized, that I'd left for good, and that he was free to build a new life with her. He'd introduced her to his parents as his future wife, spent holidays with her, and celebrated family events with her while I was deployed for my country. Worst of all, Emily revealed Daniel had proposed to a third woman in Dallas, just weeks before. He hadn't just betrayed me, he'd manipulated 3 separate women simultaneously, juggling lies and promises to all of us, convinced he'd never get caught. During his deposition, Daniel's perfect facade crumbled completely. Dressed in the anniversary jacket I'd bought him, he smiled and charmed the room until Linda laid out photos, videos, audio recordings, and financial proof of every lie. When Emily walked into the room mid-testimony and asked him which one of us he'd planned to marry, the man who always had an answer finally fell silent. He had no more lies left to tell. The divorce hearing was where the truth finally won. I wore my army uniform that day, not for pride, but for integrity. That uniform represents discipline, honesty, and sacrifice. Everything Daniel had spent years destroying. The court heard every piece of evidence: the staged vacation, the hidden assets, the fraudulent property transfers, the months of calculated lies, and his multi-partner deception. The judge ruled decisively. The $1 cabin transfer was declared fraudulent and returned to our marital estate. Daniel was ordered to reimburse every stolen dollar, cover all legal fees, and surrender full ownership of our family home. The judge made it clear, this was not a simple divorce failure. This was deliberate, premeditated deception and financial fraud. After the ruling, Harold approached me with a quiet, genuine apology. He admitted he'd stayed silent for too long, choosing family loyalty over honesty. But some apologies are too late to fix what's broken. In the months after, I rebuilt my life slowly but surely. I earned a well-deserved promotion on base, reconnected with my purpose, and turned my pain into power. I paid off Maria's entire mortgage as thanks for choosing honesty and courage when no one else would. I started volunteering with a support group for military spouses, navigating divorce, sharing my story to help others feel less alone in their betrayal. I no longer check up on Daniel's life. I don't need to know if he's happy or suffering. That's not bitterness. It's freedom. I finally let go of the desire for revenge, because revenge never heals you. The truth heals you. Choosing honesty over anger heals you. Rebuilding yourself after someone tries to break you heals you. Looking back, I don't regret finding the truth that day on that Texas roadside. That security camera footage didn't destroy my life. It saved me from wasting more years in a fake marriage, surrounded by fake family and fake love. The hardest moments in our lives are often the ones that quietly set us free. If you've ever lived through a quiet betrayal, a hidden lie, or a life that looked perfect on camera but was broken behind closed doors, your story matters. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Thank you for being here with me today. If this story resonated, hit like and subscribe for more raw, honest inner monologues about healing, strength, and choosing yourself after everything falls apart. Until next time, take care of your heart and never underestimate the quiet strength it takes to walk in truth.